Hello. Today we're talking about what I consider to be the UK economy's best kept secret, our gaming industry. And joining me to talk about what it looks like is Ukie CEO Nick Poole. Nick, thanks for joining us.
Great to see you, Ben. How are things?
Amazing. And could you just tell us a little bit about Ukie and your role and perhaps a very quick overview of UK gaming?
Sure, of course. So I think I have the best job in the world. I'm Chief Exec of UK Interactive Entertainment. We're the trade association representing the UK's flourishing video game industry, as you so kindly said in the intro. So video games are big business in the UK. The market valuation around 7.6 billion and holding very steady actually over the last few years, returning a 6 billion GVA back into the UK economy, which is a huge contribution. And we have around 2,500 video games businesses here in the UK producing some of the world's best known games.
Is there like a favourite game that stuck out? Or
So many. I think my current favourite is a brilliant Great British game called Thank Goodness You're Here, which if your listeners haven't had a go on yet, I really, really recommend it. It's described as the most Barnsley game in history. And it is just extraordinary, full of humour, amazing animation, great artwork, great game.
So we'll look that up. Actually, that's a really good launch pad to talk about what is UK gaming, isn't it? Animation, artwork, creativity. What is the shape of like the UK gaming industry? What does it look like in
So it's been a pretty amazing journey over the last 30 years from really quite humble origins, but it really started with the birth of the home microcomputer, those very early days of kind of chaps in beards with microprocessors in a shed building computers that became the basis of the computing industry. I always think games are the combination of really two things that are great British exports in one way. One is, bodging technology in sheds to create entirely new industry verticals. The other is our amazing history of slightly countercultural, slightly tongue-in-cheek creativity and art. And if you put those two things together, you end up with one of the world's leading games industries. And I think the really interesting thing about where we're positioned worldwide is we make great games in the UK. We have a really strong domestic market, but we're also seen increasingly as a service provider to the rest of the world. So this is it's a $300 billion industry worldwide and growing rapidly. And a lot of people come to the UK to look for expertise, technical excellence, and new ways of driving things forward.
I don't think people will know a lot of prominent cultural sort of icons come from the United Kingdom, don't they? Like Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Derbyshire, if I recall correctly.
Absolutely.
Grand Theft Auto, which by itself, people may have heard of, is a very controversial franchise and game, very American, comes out of the United Kingdom. And
Dundee.
I'm sure you could name other exports, but much like music and literature, we have gunned above our weight a little bit.
We really have. And it's often look at why. So people think GTA is an American game because it's about America. But actually, I think it could only have been made in Scotland because it's that tongue-in-cheek, the ability to kind of satirize and to take an outsider's perspective on a culture that makes it the game that it is, which engages with millions of players. And that is something of a global export for the UK, is the ability to just stand back and reflect on worlds in a way that people find really entertaining, really amusing, and really engaging. The Thank Goodness You're Here is funny. It's a great place to spend a bit of time. And so it doesn't all need to be incredibly serious and incredibly po-faced. We can use this as a way of really engaging people.
I think it's fair to say, like, categorically, we're like a global player in this.
We really are. We're up there. I think London is amongst the top 3 destinations in the world for building games. A number of developers and studios clustered around the city here. We see investment from all over the world. I was out in Dubai talking to Chinese investors about putting money into the UK scene. So, we're really punching above our weight.
What does it look like? Is it using kind of tech proxy? Like we all know, like tech companies, there are 6 very, very large tech companies with global footprints, and around that, an ecosystem of sort of providers and other things. And what does UK gaming look like in terms of shape and feel?
I think it's a really great question. I think not dissimilar. So of those 2,500, there's probably 10% that are really big global players that have a footprint in lots of countries, including the UK. We're particularly strong in the kind of mid-tier, what they call AA or III space. So that tends to be large games, but without the sort of global mega structure of the kind of distribution mechanism behind them. And then we've got, maybe 65% of the industry are really quite small indies. So that might be anything from 12 to 50 people working on their first or second game. I think some of the things it's really helpful to understand about the kind of composition of the industry. You've got the very big console players, the big names you'll have heard of, kind of household names. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, all of those have a footprint here in the UK. But we also have incredible mobile developers, and mobile development has grown 8% year on year over the last 4 years per the market valuation. And what we're seeing right now, which is a really, really exciting space, is user generated content. It's people building their own games on platforms like Fortnite, Roblox. And some of those are reaching audiences of millions of people now. So it's a very buoyant but very diverse kind of industry.
Yeah, it's probably worth just in some ways explaining that this is really my take. Roblox is a platform, a game, isn't it?
Yeah.
But within the game, you can build games,
Yeah.
which provides an avenue for people to create, which is really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And you're saying that's part of our UK gaming industry, that people are doing that.
It's really big. And I think it helps to understand that the days of building a game, creating the software, cutting it onto a disk and shipping that disk, those are now firmly behind us. What we're building is very large scale platforms here. So some of these games like Roblox, yes, they're a game, but they're also a game creation engine. They crowd in lots of creators. And there's a whole ecosystem, there's a whole economy around Roblox of game creation, which means those creators get paid, the platform gets paid. So for a lot of what we're seeing now as the gaming industry, what we're really talking about is ecosystems and platforms where millions of players come together.
I mean, it's for a lot of people, their touch points with games may be, certainly for me it was, a games console and a cartridge that plugs in, or a CD that goes into a computer. And now we're in this world where the internet has created these platforms and actually removed those barriers. I mean, is that the transformational shift that the internet's created the opportunity for the UK, or was it strong in the old world? Like, how's it sort of transformed?
With each new technological shift, we see new opportunities for distribution. So now, huge amounts of games are streamed or perpetually online, or kind of evergreen games that you log into via the cloud or via a server. Just recently, we've seen large players like Netflix get involved. So they've seen the huge appeal of games for younger audiences and the ability of games to bring in new demographics. So they've launched a game strategy where, as long as you've got a controller and a TV, they can stream a high quality game down the line to your front room. So the nature of distribution, I think, keeps changing, and we keep evolving with it.
But it's fun, but it's also a very serious industry, isn't it?
It is. It's a big, big business. And, producing these games is a major, major project. We were talking about the huge costs of some of the new releases that are coming out, and often in the billions. And so you're talking about large scale project management that might span teams of 300 or 400 people across 4 continents, involving $100 million budgets with their output. And that's because the sheer scale of the undertaking to create a playable environment that you want to keep coming back to, where you're not just launching a film on day one, you're creating an experience that people are going to revisit often for decades, is a huge undertaking.
But it's actually, to give a grounding of the cost, I saw a recent statistic that developing the new Grand Theft Auto 6 franchise is more expensive than building the Burj Khalifa. So building a virtual world, which is effectively a recreation of the state of Florida, as we understand it, is more expensive than to build the world's tallest building. And that's just one example of one, I guess, very high-profile game, isn't it? But they exist in all different sizes, don't they? From other AAA games with large multi-million budgets to indie games. So what's the difference between, I guess, if people talk about an indie game and a AAA, what are the sort of different games that exist, and how does that work?
I mean, it's a medium as diverse as, literature, art, TV, film. And so you have your amazing mega projects like, GTA 6. And I haven't seen the basis. I've seen those numbers. I haven't seen the basis of those numbers, but I wouldn't put it past Rockstar to be sharing that as a fact, because it's brilliant for, understanding.
It's good PR, isn't it?
It's brilliant. No, absolutely. And, why does it cost that? Well, again, as I say, you only have to build the Burj Khalifa the once. If you have to build a game that people revisit for 10 or 15 years and spend entire, parts of their life in, and keep finding that a rewarding experience, that's a much bigger undertaking. It's about, engineering that experience and continuing to feed it. And interestingly, you look at the kind of lifespan of GTA 5, and I think their founder was quoted as saying recently they have effectively launched a new game every year since GTA 5 was launched. It's
Mm.
just they've done it in the form of kind of episodic content and updates. But it doesn't need to be that. You know, we have some amazingly successful indie games, mobile games that have just a hair of a fraction of that budget that are
Mm.
developed using existing tools. And I think that's one of the things that really excites me about this industry is you can have a really low barrier to entry. You know, if you've got an idea, you can access a game engine sometimes for free. You can build your own assets and you can launch that go to market in a very low friction, low risk way. You know, the upfront costs are really minimal and you can have a smash hit. You can have a kind of runaway breakthrough hit. And it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And when it does, it really hits.
Yeah, there is the ability through technology to create something at relatively low cost and then for it to scale rapidly through mobile devices or a browser. It doesn't have to be something that sits on an Xbox or PlayStation, does it? And
No, no.
something like, I know it's a few years ago, Angry Birds, you know, a good example of everybody was playing it, but it came from nowhere. And then suddenly everybody was, it was on everything, wasn't it? And there's the
Yeah.
ability to do that with the technology now, which I think it's exciting.
It is, and also with games that I was talking to the studio lead for Angry Birds, and you know that was an overnight success, decades in the making. And
Yeah.
I think one of the really exciting things for me with tech is it's brought the costs of production and distribution down to the point where you can put a thing out to the market, test it, iterate, see what works. And I think it really changes the economics of production and distribution. I think the really interesting challenge we have now is what, 14,500 games launched on one of the most popular platforms last year. So that ease of access risk leading to a kind of saturation of games.
Mm.
So the next frontier, I think, in games is going to be discovery and curation. Is how do you get the player to the game that's really going to kind of ignite a spark in them? How do you help people find their games?
Mm.
So proliferation, kind of ease of access is great, but we also need to build the tools that enable people to find those games.
And that age profile isn't, perhaps many might assume, quite young, you know, because maybe many children play games, don't they? That they buy games, but actually, it's not the case, is it? It's a much broader market than just teenagers or children.
It's huge and growing. I mean, I think it's really fascinating. The demographics at the moment, pretty 50-50 men and women playing games. The age profile actually skews slightly older now, particularly
Mm.
with mobile gaming. You have more people who might not have identified as a gamer throughout their life, but they're now sort of getting involved in playing games, particularly through mobile. And it's, you know, we think we're approaching the moment where, for the first time really in history, we'll have generations of people that have only ever grown up with games, you know, that have been there their whole life. Whereas I think for some of us, you know, we remember the onset of this as an industry and seeing it grow. But I think one of the exciting things there is it's just reaching maturity, you know, so
Mm.
we've hit a huge valuation in the UK, a real growth. We've just had an amazing validation from the government in terms of the recognition of us as a frontier industry in their industrial strategy. Our question right now is how do we harness that rapid growth and turn it into the next 40 years?
Because it's a serious creative industry,
Yeah.
the scale is similar to movie productions, and actually the quality of the game and the computer graphics is comparable to what we see in cinema, isn't it? Has the technology needed to kind of move this far for it to be taken seriously, do you think? Or like what sort of, how have we got here, I suppose, is my question. Is it the tech or is it other things?
Yeah, I think it's a whole series of things happening at the same time. One is just the sheer range of types of games. So now a
Mm.
game can be a huge AAA console experience, or it can be a a really great time on the mobile, or anything in between. I think some of it is about just that cultural legitimacy that comes with familiarity. So people have grown up with games, they
Mm.
know them, they trust them. I think as well, we've finally broken through in political and economic recognition just because of the sheer kind of pace and turnover and if I'm honest, resilience. We've
Mm.
seen a lot of turbulence within other tech sectors and other, financial sectors within the UK. Games have continued to grow in terms of their market valuation. So, I think it's just that moment where we feel like we've almost been operating in stealth mode for 30 or 40 years and suddenly people realized games are here.
Yeah.
And so it's looking at, okay, so where does that go next?
And actually reflecting, COVID was 5 years ago, but actually gaming and with them being on platforms online probably was able to not necessarily operate in production without disruption. Everyone was disrupted, but certainly in terms of the user interface, I think a lot of people returned to gaming in COVID because they had nothing else to do, but they were able to do it easily. And I know from personal experience, the way I would socialize with my friends was we all played online games, and
Yeah.
that's how we would communicate. And
What did you play?
We played we played a lot of games.
Excellent.
We spent a lot of time again on a Rockstar game, Red Dead Redemption 2. So
Fantastic
we were
game.
playing as
Yeah.
being cowboys. So, what do you do when you can't leave the house? You know, pretend to go to Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And because of the way they crafted that world, the way it felt immersive, it was the sound, the way it looked. It's a long way from playing Mario Kart on Super
Yeah.
Nintendo.
Yeah. I love that.
You
That's
know,
brilliant. I think so many people took to playing games in COVID. I think it was the thing you could do. And I think that for a lot of people was the first time you realized that games wasn't a solo activity, that it's become social
mm,
time. So there was one extraordinary story, a game I particularly love called No Man's Sky
mm,
from Hello Games, great British company. And they saw a group of lads going to a planet, and they didn't really have a reason to, and so they kind of followed up and looked at what they were doing. And it turned out a friend of theirs had died, sadly passed away, and they'd built a memorial on this planet, and they were
mm,
going there to memorialize and remember their friend.
mm.
And you suddenly realize this is much deeper than just a kind of disposable short-term entertainment medium. This is culture now,
Yeah.
and these are the spaces people are choosing to convene.
And those massive multiplayer games, whether they're like No Man's Sky, which is very high quality, future realistic sci-fi, or something like Roblox, which if people see their children playing it typically is effectively like online Lego, isn't it? They're still creative outlets, aren't they? And I've seen my friends' children on Roblox do things that, I would do with Lego. But it's increasingly, his children are 4 and 9 and they're just so comfortable with doing it. And I watch it and I think they move so quickly creating these games.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
whole comfort with digital skills being built through generations who are just used to using iPads and
Super
computers.
important. It really is. And I think there's a really legitimate and important dialogue around screen time and,
Mm,
keeping kids safe in these digital spaces. And I think it's really important that those discussions are informed by the question of what are they doing
mm,
through those screens. What are the experiences they're having? Because so much of what people are doing in game environments is pro-social skills development, understanding. We've seen some amazing evidence recently around well-being and therapeutic benefits of time spent in game spaces.
But there's a lot of value, isn't there, in looking at those beneficial activities? And I kind of look at my experience. I played a lot of Sim City growing up, which is where you build a city, Sim City,
Love
yeah.
that game.
But at the core of that game is the idea of balancing different city budgets, deciding how you develop your city out, and building.
Yeah, yeah,
And maybe a lot of the things that have carried me as an accountant, the ability to kind of analyze: do I invest here? Do I wait? Things like that. It probably comes from me playing that in a relatively formative age and just
yes,
getting comfortable with the idea that, for example, you can't spend the whole budget in one year. And, in that game, are you going to spend less on education this year? But if you do, your people are less skilled and therefore your city grows less. And all these things are embedded in the game.
yeah.
And I think of all the games that are available now and the skills that you can learn, anything from ordering a pizza in Roblox to the modern version of SimCity, there's a lot of value in that, which I think people do recognise.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I love SimCity. It's a great game for partly understanding that consumers are not rational economic agents and you can't always keep them happy. And also natural disasters are always going to happen with your city.
Yeah,
But
alien invasions used to be the thing that used to really wind me
really,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can understand
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I mean, I think this is play, and
Mm,
people have always used play to develop skills and socialization and have a safe environment in which to experiment. And I think that's what these game spaces are doing now.
mm.
And I think there's a responsibility on us to use that safely and to create, pro-social and non-toxic environments. But actually, the importance of play in terms of the world we're building for young people couldn't be more central.
Yeah. And play is, you learn foundational skills through play.
Exactly.
Oh, I think it's great.